Ah, Pixar, it does my heart good to see you walk your way back to the top. And speaking of Pixar, today we'll be looking at an oldie but a goodie. The one and only Pixar theory suggested by John Negroni. John suggests that not only do all your favorite Pixar movies take place in one universe, but they each have a place on an ever-expanding timeline from prehistoric Earth to the far distant future. With the end suggesting that Boo from Monsters Inc. became the witch from Brave in her own time loop. And everyone, including myself, were on board at the time. This was a solid theory, at the time at least. But as more and more Pixar movies started entering the fray, and newer versions of the theory started making it sound like a stretch with only few cameos to back it up, starts to make guys like me question, maybe this is getting a little silly. Here are the established rules I'm going to be using for this debunk. For one, only use Pixar movies after 2003 as that's when the theory was first made. Number 2, no sequels as of course those would be tied to past movies. Number 3, stay consistent. Not just through in-universe lore, but also through our own explanations of how it could work. So, with those out of the way, let's get started. First up, Inside Out. What does that establish? The inside of the subconscious mind and the different emotions that control it. Next is The Good Dinosaur, where we see the mirror that should have killed the dinosaurs miss, and yet they still went extinct somehow. Okay. Skipping a couple of sequels, we come to Coco, where we find our first couple points of interest. The first is an established afterlife based on the Day of the Dead in Mexico, where there's a land of remembered where your ancestors can party their asses off, and then the final death, where you basically fade from existence, and the second being this poster for Incredibles 2 right here. Now normally this would be chalked up as a mere Easter egg, a wink and a nod to the audience, but considering we have Lightyear, a supposedly real movie in the Pixar world, then what's stopping us from saying the same thing about the Incredibles movies? Heck, how can we say any of these movies take place on a timeline? Maybe they're just layers and layers of cinematic reality. Whoops, sorry about that, I got a little existential again, but anyways, just be on the safe side.
Strike?
Our next two movies are going to be Onward and Soul, the latter of which is a personal favorite of mine. Onward takes place in a fantasy world, where all your favorite magical creatures eventually favor technology over magic. Now, as to how this society of mythological creatures can exist on the same timeline as well as have technology that developed the same way, well, one word: aliens. See, most timeline theorists will take into account this double moon right here to say that Onward is actually taking place on an alien planet the whole time, which, yes, is a bit of a stretch, but there's nothing to contradict this point, so I'll allow it. However, it's a little different for Soul on the other hand, as all of the movie's events are triggered when main character Joe dies and refuses to go to beyond. That's two different interpretations of the afterlife in the Pixar world. Now hold on, I hear you say. Surely the Beyond must be the place that takes you to the land of remembered. That's plausible. But not once in Soul do they ever call the great beyond the land of remembered. Or vice versa for Coco. And out of all the things in Soul that are said to be hypothetical or theoretical, names like the great beyond aren't one of them. They are most certainly two different things. Now skipping over Luca and Turning Red, as they don't have anything I can think of that directly contradicts the theory, we come to the newest Pixar movie to date, Elemental. But before we go into the final point, can I just take the time to rant to you about how underrated this movie is? 74% by critics on Rotten Tomatoes, sure that's decent at least, but audience gave it a 93% on the same site. It went from making $29.5 million opening weekend, one of Pixar's worst opening weekends by the way, but 2 months later they pull off 5 times that much, something that is almost unheard of in the industry. And look, all I'm saying is, whether you love or hate Disney, this was an objectively good movie. Okay. Now where was I? Alright, Elemental. Now this has to be the biggest objection to the Pixar theory, right? You have an entire city of elements living together. Not magical creatures who are secretly aliens, not monsters who are secretly time travelers or whatever, and thus like me, you must be asking yourself, what? What is the justification by timeline theorists for this movie?
Oh, wait a second. These are always classic.
Well, let me just look up my source real quick, and okay. Elemental apparently takes place eons before The Good Dinosaur, and potentially explains the building blocks of life. Okay. Also, the movie has a Pizza Planet truck, which Boo from Monsters Inc. uses as markers throughout time and space. But also, there's a poster for Space Club in Wade's flashback, and it looks just like the planet used in Elio's concept art, despite the fact that there's no mention of space travel or alien throughout the entire film. And how could the elements have even known or replicated human cities in the future? But we got a plan right, and that confirms the entire theory. I swear to you, I'm not crazy. Did I mention that whole explanation came from Screen Rant? And there you have it, 3 good reasons why the Pixar theory cannot work. As always, thank you for watching and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Theory debunked.